This video is brought to you by Squarespace. There's so much variety of skin tones out there available to painters, whether that be the real world, sci-fi or fantasy settings. When it comes to painting humans, where do you actually start? I mean, we could use von Lucian's chromatic scale, but you know, we'd be forever trying to work out that amount of colour schemes. Or we could opt for the Fitzpatrick scale, which has quite a few choices as well. However, I've decided to simplify it and focus on 4 main tones, which is going to be light, olive, medium/tanned, and dark skin tones. So for this video, I'm going to be demonstrating this on some Dark Oath Savages. They're pretty cool, they've got lots of exposed skin, and they're Warcry models, and I like painting Warcry stuff. However, you can easily transfer any of these schemes to anything, literally anything that is a human being, whether that's sci-fi, fantasy, or real world. You can use these schemes and transfer it. So stick them on your angry space soldiers if that's what you want to do. First up, I'm going to begin with the light or fair skin tone, and for this I'm going to be using Basic Skin. And I'll be base coating this over a grey clear undercoat. The undercoat doesn't really matter here, I just went for light because, well, I just sprayed them all in one go. So the undercoat is not important, but make sure you do a couple of thin coats of this when applying it over. With that skin now base coated, I'm going to get some Gulliman flesh. I'm going to thin this down 50-50 with water and apply it over. I'm going to do a couple of coats once the first coat's dry, and then I'm going to apply it over it on a second coat. Again, that'll just add a bit more definition. This is better than doing one thick coat because it can be quite dark and very neat, whereas if you do it like with 2 thin coats, it looks a little bit more subtle and settles better across the model. That contrast dry, I'm just going to get some basic skin tone now and just tidy up those raised areas. So that's like muscles, going to be noses, cheekbones, heads, anything that sticks out basically. And just to help define those areas a bit more, I'm going to get that Gulliman flesh again. I'm just going to do one more coat over, and that'll give you a nice bridge between those shades as well as those raised areas that you've just tidied up. The last thing to do is just pick out some final highlights, and for this I'm using luminous flesh. Again, cheekbones, nose, the odd muscle, maybe the odd vein, maybe the odd knuckle. It's entirely up to you. So Pat, I was thinking, in the 40k universe, right, do you think the Drakari ever have issues trying to pick skin tones for their garments? Hey, I'm Herman Cooley, promoter of Rakhov's reliable regalia and raiment repository here in Camorra. And thanks to Squarespace, we were able to create this magnificent endeavour, all with a few clicks and flayed mortals. Whether it's physical or emotional clothing we're selling, Squarespace has the tools we needed to start selling online. Using Squarespace's professional portfolio designs, it allowed us to easily present our wares and display any ongoing projects to our clients up in the Dark City. It also has password-protected pages to share private work with clients. That's right, Vect, your coat of arms is on its way. But best of all, it allowed us to display any posts from our social media profiles and have them linked to our website, meaning when fresh stock was in, our clients were the first to know. So what are you waiting for? Become your own skin merchant of Camorra and start selling today. So head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/thepaintingphase to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Bye-bye. Well, that was a bit odd, but never mind. Moving on. We're going to move on from the light skin tone now and move on to our olive or bronzed flesh effect, if you like. Again, over the grey clear undercoat, I'm going to be using tan yellow here. I'm going to base coat that again, and again I'm going to apply a couple of thin coats just to get a nice even coverage across those muscular arms and torso. Then I'm going to use the best paint ever, Peachy Flesh, and I'm going to thin this down very much like I did with the Gulliman Flesh in the last scheme, and I'm going to do this in 2 thin coats as well. Then I'm going to get tan yellow and tide up those raised areas. So again, that's going to be faces. The bold head on this guy looks a bit like me, actually, thinking about it. And then pick out that pecs and those muscles. Those muscles just look like mine as well. This is pretty much me in miniature form. So yeah, just take your time, lick that brush, and then just run it around his nipples a bit as well. Next up is Radiant Flesh, and pretty much like the previous stage, we're going to be a bit more focused here and just pick out some extremities like knuckles, nose, cheekbones, ears, and he's got a couple of horns here as well, so I'll pick those out. Our next skin tone is going to be the weathered, or if you like, very healthy looking medium or tanned tone. And for this, we're going to start with cork as our base coat. And again, a couple of coats just to cover over that undercoat. Then I'm going to grab some aged hide from speed paint, and again, thin it down like I've done with all the previous contrast and speed paints, and apply that over in a couple of thin coats as well. It's a really nice ruddy colour as well, so it's going to really help bring out that tanned medium tone here as well. And again, it's tidying back up with that previous base coat, so picking out those raised details. Check out the guns on this lass. And then we're going to highlight who I'd like to call Mrs. Peach with some tan yellow, and again just picking out those extremities, get those veins on her arms, cheekbones, nose, that angry face she's got going on. That's a normal face, by the way, that's Mrs. Peach, that's a normal face. To finish up our 4 skin tones, we shall move on to the rich and attractive dark flesh tone. First up is leather brown, and we're going to base coat over all that skin, and I'm going to do a couple of coats here because of the light undercoat. Then what we're going to do is tidy up the raised areas if you like, but we're actually just going to layer up those raised areas, and for this we're going to be using mahogany brown. So very much how we've done with the previous stages, where you're picking out all that muscular detail, extremities like knuckles, nose, cheekbones, head. We're doing the same thing here, but this is before we put a wash on it. And then to help tie those together to give it a nice bridge, we're going to get some noble skin and I'll thin this down, and it'll be like 50-50 with water, and we'll apply that all over, and that will give a nice bridge between that dark tone and that mahogany brown. Then, just to add a nice sort of highlight to this skin tone, we're going to get a mix of basic skin and mahogany, mix them together, and this will give you a nice sort of mid-tone tanned flesh, which we'll use as our highlight. And again, it's just picking out the knuckles, raised areas, any muscular detail, cheekbones, nose, etc. There we are, that dark tone now done. Just add a bit more detail to these models. They've got lots of scars on them. So what we're going to do here is get some burnt red, and I'm going to mix that into each of those base tones that we've used for each of the colour schemes. I'll just show a couple here. So all I'm going to do is get 50-50 burnt red, mix it into the flesh tone, which is relevant to whichever skin tone you've done, and then just thin it down a little bit, and then just start applying that around the scars. You can always tidy back up with a highlight after if you want to, but for the most part, it will do the job you need. There we are, those scars now picked out. Our 4 skin tones are now done. Now, just by these methods that we've used, because we've done a lot of base coats, some shades, some tidying up and some highlight, you could literally just mix up some of the colour schemes here entirely. So you can like take tan yellow and add it to another tone. Instead of adding it to cork, you could add it to radiant flesh, for instance, and just have a bit of a play around. So you can get a vast variety of different skin tones just by mixing up some of the highlights, some of the shades, maybe some of that tidy up stages. Maybe don't even do a tidy up stage on some of them, just do like the base tone and a wash, you know, and then maybe a highlight. So you can get quite a vast variety across these skin tones just by mixing out a couple of paints, adding some new ones in. Now, all the paints we've used in this video, there are plenty of other similar skin tones out there across the vast variety of paints out in the big wide world. So it's more of a hint as the flesh, as opposed to you must use this paint. It's Use something that looks like a bronze flesh, use something that looks like a ruddy flesh or a tanned flesh or a dark flesh. It doesn't have to be this particular colour as such, but this is a great guide to get those skin tones across your forces and give them a nice bit of variety. As always, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and if you want to see some of these skin tones in action, check out this video we did previously where we picked out some different skin tones on our navy breeches for kill team, so it gives you an idea of what it looks like across a force. Thank you very much to our patrons for your support. You guys are amazing, so loyal and lovely. Thanks for keeping the lights on. You guys are great, and until the next time, we'll see you around.